Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of PhotoBiz Live. This is Danny from the PhotoBiz team, and today we're joined by Richard Esposito for a webinar about digital asset management. So again, as I mentioned, we're joined by Richard, and Richard's been a professional photographer for over 8 years. He's a 4-time Emmy Award winner for his work in video editing, and his photography has been featured by Nikon in an editorial. Traveling is a big part of Richard's life personally and professionally. He has photographed weddings across the U.S. and the Caribbean. Richard has also spoken at conferences and to photography associations from California all the way to London. So in addition to getting the opportunity to learn from Richard in today's webinar, we will also have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. You may submit your questions using the chat tool inside of the webinar software, and they will be answered after the presentation. You can also join in the discussion on Twitter by using the hashtag #PhotoBizLive, and that's all one word. So if at any point during today's webinar you have any difficulty hearing the speaker or seeing the slides, please use the comment box to let us know, and I will help you individually. We'll be recording this webinar just like we do with all of our other webinars, and it will be available for replay on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/PhotoBiz. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Richard and get our presentation started. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. So I know you've got a great presentation for us planned, and I'm going to go ahead and let you kick things off.
All right. Thank you, Danny. Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Esposito of I Need RE, Systems and Workflows for Photographers. I'm also a photographer RE when it comes to my wedding, portrait, and commercial photography. But enough about me. Let's go on here. Today I'm talking to you about the very exciting topic of D.A.M, Digital Asset Management. D.A.M is also pretty much what I don't want to hear you say when something happens to your files, especially your images. So I'm going to talk about how you store your files, back them up, how they're organized, so you and your staff know where everything is and how to easily free up space. I always find photographers need more space when I talk to them, and I even recently talked with a photographer who does half the amount of work I do, yet uses twice the amount of hard drive space. So we're working with her on her workflow and getting her hard drives freed up. The other thing I find when working with studios is kind of a lack of organization, and I do believe that there is a reason for this. Photographers tend to be a creative bunch, a very right-brain process where creativity comes from. The organization and analytical thought process tends to come from the left side of the brain. So file organization and workflow isn't always a photographer's strong point. So that's why I help out. To give you an idea of what I'm managing, last year I did about 27 weddings, 14 commercial sessions, 10 events, 6 charity events, which we donated our time to. 29 portrait sessions. Last year was kind of a launch of our portrait business, and 2 full video production jobs, which each took about a month to work on. Did 5 speaking engagements, gave 2 workshops, and spent about 49 days on the road. Now, I'm the only photographer here. I have contracted photographers as second shooters. I do about 90% of the production work in the office. I do have an office assistant that takes care of a lot of various things and places orders. She's here about 20 hours a week. So all those weddings, events, and projects, there's quite a bit of processing involved, along with keeping track of all the files and what is being worked on. Last year I was done with everything except some wedding albums. Everything was done by Christmas. It's also fun for me when I work with other studios on workflow and file management, when they have multiple employees who do separate stages of the production, and they have to keep track of what everyone is doing to keep production going, who's working on what, what's ready for what. And the digital asset management all kind of works into that. So the biggest reason for digital asset management for me is about the what if. And this is what I protect against. Not just hard drive failure. What if you're out at a session and you return home or to your studio and there was a fire? Will you lose everything? How quickly can you recover 100%? Now, I've been in business nearly 9 years now in July, and I haven't lost a single file. I'm going to find some wood to knock on here. I've had hard drive failure, bad CF cards, even lost the card. Actually, my assistant dropped the card in the parking lot. We won't talk about that. But there's always a backup. I've never had to say to a client, I'm sorry we lost your images. And unfortunately, I know photographers who have had to tell their clients that some of their wedding images were lost. And that one upset client can lead to a string of bad press and no referrals, which can lead to no business. Now, some people I know may say I'm a little OCD, but I think of it as good management. I have peace of mind, a better workflow, and all of that, for me, leads to more time with my loved ones. I don't know about you, but that's my goal, and that's my wife, Kelly, and our daughter, Mia. And I get to think about them more than thinking about, are my files safe, are my files backed up, do we have everything? So here's what I'm going to go over with you. Hard drive management, backing up your drives, both on-site and cloud storage. File management, how files and client images are organized. Easy archiving, from archiving a client to archiving a year, even archiving just a month at a time, which I find portrait studios like to do. And easy removal of unneeded files. All right, well, let's get started here. These are a few of my favorite things. My Mac Pro, I have 2 Drobos, a hard drive dock, and file syncing software. I know many of you are working on iMac or MacBook Pros, and there aren't as many internal hard drives or enough USB, FireWire, or no eSATAs. And now Thunderbolt comes into play, to connect everything. Every studio I work with seems to have their own unique twist and setup, but it always seems to work out. So first things first, your hard drives. I believe in a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio of duplication. For every hard drive that you have, you should have a duplicate of it on-site and off-site. That way, if anything should happen to a single file, you go right to your backup and grab the latest updated version. Or if the whole hard drive fails, you're instantly up and running using your backup. Your backup then becomes your master, and then from there you create a new backup. It's kind of the circle of hard drive life. Offsite can be a third device or cloud storage, which is something I'm going to get into and give you a few options for that. This is my actual setup right now. Because I have the Mac Pro, I set up my system a little different than most studios I set up. I do have a 1-to-1 setup with a little exception. I use one hard drive to back up my 2 internal drives. The second internal drive mainly houses my iTunes library, and it's set as a scratch disk for many programs like Photoshop, so nothing that important on that drive. I did have the backup to my main hard drive as a true root level duplicate. So if my main internal drive ever failed, I could just replace it and be up and running again. I discovered that having 2 hard drives plugged into the same computer with root level duplication caused some really funky problems with OS X, and programs just refused to run for me at some point. So a standard copy of the files on the drive are just fine. We'll be able to recover our system, our user folder, with just a duplicate. You don't have to go so crazy as to make an exact duplicate down to the root files. So that's why I just combined my 2 internal drives onto one for the backup. The 4th drive, I do have a Time Machine backup. I never use it. I wasn't really a big believer in Time Machine. Time Machine does have it has its place. If you're going to run Time Machine, have a dedicated drive for it, as Time Machine will fill that drive at some point, which is just what Time Machine does. And you won't have to manage that drive at all. Just let it be. Now, as for what is on your main computer's hard drive, it should be as little as possible. The only thing that we have on our main hard drive is the operating system, OS X, and the installed programs. There are no photos, no videos, no music, Nothing that we would be using that would slow down our computer from running the operating system and the programs. It's basically a well-oiled machine. So we try and keep it, not let it fragment that much either by constantly putting files on and off of it. So where do you put all your client files and images? I highly recommend doing a Drobo. If you haven't heard of them, it's Data Robotics. I believe it's also drobo.com. But I'll tell you what options on that in a second. But you do have to know what your needs are before purchasing one and why you are purchasing the Drobo. In fact, I think it's the next slide. Yeah, there it is. I'll give you a quick run through. If you're not familiar with Drobo, I do suggest going to their website. It's similar to using a RAID, but it's not at all a RAID. It's so much more, and it's so much easier to manage. It's really a remarkable machine. So the 4-bay Drobo is the original, which is the one on the left there. It was meant for occasional use and storage. The 5-bay Drobo S is meant for much more use and has faster processors in it. And the FS is the network version. I highly recommend the Drobo S. I had hard drive problems and some issues with the 4-bay Drobo simply because I used it to its max. I was literally pushing the processors to their max, which caused the Drobo to eject itself, which caused issues with the drives inside. If you're editing photos off of the Drobo, even in my case, I edit HD video that is on the Drobo. I don't recommend the 4-bay Drobo. It's just not powerful enough. The 5-bay FS is a network drive that connects via Ethernet. I don't recommend this either because Lightroom catalogs can't be opened over a network. So you have to copy the Lightroom catalog to your computer to use it, but you don't have to copy the raw files. They can stay on the network. So that just kind of adds a little extra complication. The 5-bay Drobo S has the processor power with USB, FireWire, and eSATA connections that make this perfect for photographers. I'm connected to mine via eSATA, and I use the Drobo as a working drive. Even when I'm editing HD video, the video is on the Drobo, and I have no slowdowns or no issues editing anything off of the Drobo S. And I've never had an issue with it either, which is nice. Besides getting the Drobo itself, you'll have to purchase the hard drives that go in the Drobo. And what's nice about the Drobo is you can purchase any drives that you want. I use the Western Digital Enterprise drives, which can handle the speed that I need, and really need because I'm editing the HD video. The Western Digital Caviar Black drives have been my favorite and are the way to go for most photographers. The price is pretty right now. I get all my drives from Newegg.com. And I'm just not a fan of the Caviar Green drives, as I've had numerous ones fail with the amount of work that we do. Now, you probably saw before that I do have 2 Drobos. Remember my one-to-one practice. My second one is just a backup of the master. Should anything happen to your Drobo, like a file system corruption, which is, from what I understand, an OS X fault or lack of user maintenance, you'll have to get everything off the Drobo, format it, and put it back on to recover. Now think about having to do that with up to 7 terabyte of data. You'll need some hard drives to put everything on, and we're talking days of downtime to recover, which is not fun. I know it's happened to me once. Besides the internal drives and the Drobo, I also have a hard drive dock. It's a pretty cheap device, as low as $30, that simply lets you access a bare hard drive. Currently I'm using the StarTech Drive Dock, which has been good for me, and another studio I know uses this one as well. There have been some mixed reviews online on it, but so far so good. With this dock, I'm just able to purchase bare hard drives. I was just talking to a photographer about this, who was going to purchase, multiple, like LaCie drives that are all in one. It's the drive, it's the connections, it's the power cable, it's everything. And comparing the price with one of those compared to just purchasing the bare hard drive, it's a lot cheaper to purchase a bare hard drive. And then now you just have the dock on your desk. You don't have a whole lineup array of hard drives, each with their own power cable, each with their own FireWire connection. and how often are you going to be using every one of those at all times. So I just have the dock sitting on my desk, and there's probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's the sixth one, 6 drives. We use the HUD-Z protective cases for them, sitting next to the dock, and when I need to use one of them, I take it out of the case and I put it in the dock, and I have everything I need. So it's just a great way to access information, and a cheaper way over the long term to purchase hard drives. Oh, I didn't hit that slide. We already talked about that. Going on. So the dock, again, I said, has USB, eSATA, USB plugs and ports, and an SD card slot are in front as well. We just plug the drive into the dock like putting bread into a toaster. The drive just shows up on my desktop like any other connected drive. And really, I use the dock for archive purposes. Right now on my Drobo, I don't have anything prior to 2011 on it. All jobs from 2003 to 2010 are archived on bare hard drives. Every year has their own master drive and backup drive. Always have 2 copies of everything. It's also recommended that 1 copy be on a different type of media, like DVDs. We stopped DVDs a few years ago because you have to burn so many for just one wedding due to the raw file sizes. It was just getting ridiculous, and spindles of DVDs are piling up on the shelf, and it was just kind of the time for no more DVDs for us. But OneDrive lives here in the office. You can put them in a fireproof safe, and the other lives off-site, which can be, like a relative's house. I also use the dock for a raw archive. Every time I come back from a session, I load the images using either Lightroom or PhotoMechanic. Usually with weddings, PhotoMechanic. Portrait sessions, we'll use Lightroom. When you import images using their import process windows, there's an option to make a second copy to another location. So I have a bare drive that I put in the hard drive dock that's just dedicated for raw archiving. I only use the drive to store all the raw images direct from the camera. It's just another added backup of just the raw images. Part of my workflow is pretty much when the client orders what they want to order, we delete all the rejects from an event, from a portrait session, and they're never to be seen again. But just in case, we have this raw archive drive that everything lives on for as long as it possibly can. Now, how to create your automated backup drives and back up to them regularly without having to do anything. You use syncing software. I use ChronoSync, which some people find a little complicated, but I like it. I say bring it on. I have also used Second Copy, which is a little easier to set up and understand. What these programs do is allow you to set up a schedule to copy data from one drive to another. There are other options like syncing between drives and other scenarios, but we want a basic copy from the master to the backup. I have ChronoSync start every night at 1 a.m. because I know no one will be working in the office at that time. Hopefully you aren't either. So at 1 a.m., ChronoSync starts and looks to see what changes were made on the master hard drive. It then makes those same changes to the backup drive. So let's say you loaded a wedding onto your master today. At 1 a.m. tonight, ChronoSync will copy that wedding to the backup. The difference between this and a RAID is that a RAID happens instantly, where a time backup allows you some time. You can always go back and recover from the backup from the last time the backup ran. You can set the schedule however you want, once a week, once a day, once an hour. Having this automated schedule backup means you don't have to manually do it yourself or even think about it. The second solution for creating a backup is offsite cloud storage. One thing I find people think cloud storage is used for is for archiving old files that you don't want on your hard drive anymore. And that's not necessarily the case. If that's what you want, that can get expensive for a photographer because of the amount of hard drive space that we use. Your cloud storage will simply mirror what you currently have on your drive, like an offsite RAID, if you will. If you delete a year from your master drive, it deletes a year in the cloud. Now, there are a few companies out there that photographers like to use. Backblaze is what I've been using. There's Carbonite and CrashPlan. They all have similar pricing plans, but it's important to research based on your studio needs, such as multiple computers, external hard drives, and overall space. What I like about Backblaze is that it's $50 a year for unlimited space. This includes hard drives that are not on a network, your internal hard drives. My Drobo is connected via eSATA. For most people, it's FireWire. That is not a network connection, so you can back up your Drobo to Backblaze as well. My initial upload was about 4 terabyte, and it did take a few months of uploading with a commercial-grade internet connection. Carbonite is probably the most heard about from their TV commercials. There's a feature in CrashPlan that I love. You can have a hard drive on another computer that's off-site that CrashPlan will download to. So like I was thinking of partnering with a friend's studio and putting one of my drives in his studio and him putting one in my studio. So everything that uploads to CrashPlan then downloads to my hard drive at my friend's studio. That way I have off-site storage that is local, so I can just go pick up the drive if I need it. Uploading your whole life to a cloud-based storage can take quite a while, months even. It depends on your internet connection and how much you use the internet. What's nice is that if you're using the internet, Backblaze will stop or slow down to allow you full use of your internet. If you're not using your internet, Backblaze goes full force. So leaving your computer on 24 hours a day until everything is uploaded is recommended. Also be sure to check with your internet service provider, as you may have limits as to how much you can upload in a single month. They may cut off your internet. So here's the overview of my setup. My 2 internal drives get copied to a single drive. I have Time Machine drive, internal as well. Because I have the tower, I can have 4 internal drives. My Drobo is backed up to another Drobo. All of that backup is done by ChronoSync. My internal drives and my Drobo are backed up in the cloud with Backblaze. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I just worked with the studio working on multiple MacBook Pros, and this is their setup. One main MacBook that has all drives connected to it. They have C drives daisy-chained together. We'll use syncing software to back up the main drive to a backup drive, and Backblaze to back up the main computer and all the connected drives. The other computers are networked together using a Mac Airport, but connected to the airport via Ethernet cables for the speed. The wireless was very slow for them. That way, the computers can obviously connect to the main computer and access the hard drives, the OC drives, via the main computer. Excuse me, just need a little drink here. All right. Also with the cloud storage, you can pay additional to have the other computers and like their other laptops backed up to Backblaze as well. All right. Now let's talk about some file organization. I developed a system that works great for me and hasn't changed in about 4 years. Other studios I have set up a similar setup, but everyone has their own unique wording and needs with some of their folder names. So you can take my main template and just kind of make it your own. First, I want to mention your desktop. This is something that really makes a difference for me. This is my lovely shade of gray desktop. It does not change. These icons are on here the whole time. That is about it. This was a studio I walked into one day, and I nearly had a seizure. I just didn't know how you can concentrate and work on images like that. So Any files I put in my desktop, besides what you see here, are there for a matter of minutes before being removed. My mantra is just out of sight, out of mind. The items on my desktop are hard drives and files that are used on a daily basis. Every day, I open these folders or files. They consist of my main business folder, our blank contracts, my I Need RE business folder, all our templates for letters and products, our work in progress folder, which is the WIP, temporary images, which is something our Lightroom exports and Photoshop actions are preset to export to for things like blog and Facebook images where, like once we upload them, we don't really need them anymore, so we just delete them. That way we never have to, having that folder set and everything set to export there, we never have to, point where to save these temporary images to, and we always know where they end up, and they don't end up taking up hard drive space in the long term. We have a call info file, which is our client information sheet when someone calls a studio. We can just pull that up really quick. Our pricing spreadsheets, employee timesheet, and the financial spreadsheet that I use a lot. Our Dropbox, we love Dropbox. You'll notice that they are, you'll notice that they are all shortcuts, aliases to an actual folder. The actual folder resides on my Drobo, so I know that all of this is backed up as well. Let's take a look at my Drobo. You'll notice that I organize everything by year. I have my business documents folder and that work in progress folder. WIP, we basically whip ourselves into shape to get the work in here completed. Excuse me. I don't particularly like this folder, but most items are in and out of here within a month before being deleted or archived where it should be. So first I organize my clients by year. Once you go into a year, you'll see the types of sessions that I do: commercial, personal, portrait, videos, and wedding. I want to point out the reason for this type of structure in the very beginning of your structure. At any point, I can archive my commercial work, personal work, portraits, or weddings. Typically, we have our weddings on the drive longer because we are finishing up albums into the following year. So I can archive everything else first if needed. The beginning of the structure is the year, so I can simply copy the whole year to 2 archive drives and then take a whole year off my Drobo. And this makes archiving a year or just weddings or just portraits pretty easy. I was at an all-day seminar yesterday with Angela Carson speaking, and who's an amazing speaker. Definitely need to see her. But she had the 2012, and then she did a -1 or -2, -3, depending on the month. And she's mainly a portrait business, so she didn't need to have commercial, personal, videos or weddings. And it was a great file structure for her. And that's the thing. Everyone has their own kind of unique little twist. If you only do portraits, you can do 2012, and then you can go by month. It's up to you and how you want to work it. But you have to consider that you want to be able to archive an entire year, maybe an entire month, or a specific life cycle that you do, like your portraits and weddings. Let's see here. Then we have clients in each section. In my weddings folder, you'll see a separate folder for every client. My weddings, commercial, portrait, you can open up any of these. They're all going to look like this. Consistency for me is important, especially if you have multiple employees. And you want to make sure everything can be found by anyone that sits at your computer. So the client folders have a basic template. You'll see that template at the top of the list here. Anytime we book a new wedding client, we go into the weddings folder and duplicate this client template folder. Just select it and hit Command-D on the keyboard, and it makes a copy of it. We rename it, and then we're ready to go with that client. We name the folder the date of the session, a 2-digit month, and a 2-digit day. I like to do this by date so we can see our progress throughout the year with weddings, so we kind of know where we are, what we have ahead of us. And for portrait sessions, we are always working on the ones at the bottom because those are the latest ones that we've done. It also has to do with how we name our files for clients. Our file naming is a 4-digit sequence followed by a 4-digit number, which is the month and day followed by W for wedding. And we do P for portrait, C for commercial, E for engagement. So when someone calls or emails, asking about a certain photo, I know what the job was, the date of the job, and the file number. It's been our quickest way to find images. I know some photographers like to go by client's last name, so the jobs are in alphabetical order instead of by date. I personally like to see the list by date, so I know how far into the year I am, especially for weddings, how many more I have to go, how far back we are on production if we are, hopefully not too far back. We have really quick turnarounds here, except for the year my daughter was born and Hurricane Irene, which left us with no power for 7 days. That was good times. But I had a constant, just by looking at my folder structure, I knew how far we were behind at any point. So as for what's in the client folder, we have the documents folder where we keep their schedule, copy of their contract, and any other important documents. A graphics folder that has blank templates of all the graphics we do for a client, so I don't have to go and figure out what the dimensions are or anything before starting design of on their product. I even have the text placed where I put it so I can just type in their names and my logo in the right spot already. That's not only a huge time saver, but helps create a consistent product. Their Get to Know You session folder or engagement session, that's similar to the wedding folder, so I'll show you that one in more detail. A Lightroom folder with a new empty Lightroom catalog in it. All jobs have their own Lightroom catalog. When we book a job, we just change the name of the client folder and the name of this Lightroom catalog to match. And wedding folder. We have their album and the files associated with it, like the PSDs and the final JPEGs. A folder for their DVD slideshow. All of their images branded for Facebook, which they get with their high-res. Excuse me. I keep a highlights folder of my favorite images. Their image catalog files, we make custom books for their proof books. Their high-res JPEG. The raw images that we kept, and the rejects that we won't keep. Every client has the same folders, the same structure. And every time we work on a job from start to finish, everyone here knows where files go or where they'll be. We may not need every section for every client, like if they didn't purchase an album, but it's there if we need it. Now I want to go back to the rejects folder for a moment. This is a key element in hard drive space management. In your workflow, when you make your image selections, you should then separate your rejects from your selects, your raw folder, or what people call originals. If at some point you find yourself running out of hard drive space, or at the end of the year before you do a final archive, you can go into each job and just delete the rejects folders. These are the files that you've never worked on, never used for anything. I'll tell you that in almost 9 years of business, I've never needed my rejects once the clients receive their images. So at that point, they just take up space on your hard drive. Plus, I have that raw archive drive that has all the original files on them right from the camera if I should ever need to see them again. There's a definite comfort zone with photographers on how comfortable they are with deleting those images, but seriously, they take up a lot of space for something that you'll never use again. And again, once the end of the year comes, I'll look through all the files for a client, delete the rejects folders, and delete anything else that I feel I just don't need anymore, like the Lightroom previews file. That's the LR data file that you'll see with your Lightroom catalogs. This will be rebuilt the next time you open this catalog, which may never be again. Sometimes these files can be quite large, This one is 356 meg. Take that, and we did 27 weddings. That's over 9 gig of data just sitting there that we don't need. And I'll just remove it. So at the end of the year, I'll move the whole year to 2 separate hard drives, then remove it from the Drobo, and I'm done. Also consider that these archive drives, to take them out once in a while and just start them up in the hard drive dock. Drives don't necessarily like to sit for long periods of time without having their gears spun once in a while. It'll help prolong the life of the drive. Okay, that's my main run-through. I'll do a quick review for you. Hard drives, your main internal drive, system and applications only. Keeps the system running at full force. Backup for your main internal hard drive, so especially so you have all your applications and your user folder especially. Time machine. I don't know, I've always kind of considered it optional, especially with the way that we back up, an offsite backup, but we have the ability to have that extra internal drive and just let it run. Your master drive, which is, for me, my Drobos, business and client files, everything's stored on there, and a backup for that master drive. We use that hard drive dock for archiving and the raw archive drive. As for backing up, on-site, you should have one-to-one copies of all your drives, easy to do using syncing software, off-site cloud storage of all drives, and a fireproof safe for your backup drives that are at your home or office. File management-wise, clean desktop, out of sight, out of mind. Even my actual desk that I'm leaning on right now is pretty cleaned off of anything, so I just don't even see it. Image files, started by year, job type. For us, job type, some people skip that, and based on your client's information as well. The client template folder at the beginning that has everything preset in it, so all you have to do is duplicate that folder and you're off and running. We have our business files folder, which basically has our logo, every version of our logo, all our templates, any contracts, all that stuff, our tax documents, everything's in there. And then our ugly WIP folder, which just rotates random stuff through it on a regular basis, stuff we're working on. Archiving, once we go to archive everything, the rejects folder, we just go through all our events and delete the rejects folder when we need space or when we go to archive, because we don't even want to archive that stuff. Having the ability to archive by client, by job type, portrait or wedding, and especially by the year. Archiving 2 drives, one on-site and one off-site, and again, fireproof safe for the archive drives. My folder structure is available on my website, ineedre.com. If you just click on products, there's a digital asset management folder of how we do our wedding folders and everything that's in them, if you're interested in getting that. And the ineedre.com website, right on the home page there, I have kind of my list of favorite things. The link for Drobos there, and obviously PhotoBiz is on there, and some of the other products that I use, and some tips there to improve your mental workflow as well. If you have any questions for me, actually we're going to start taking some questions in a second. You are more than welcome to email me at help@ineedre.com. We're kind of slamming right now, but I will get to your questions as soon as I can and respond as soon as I can. So that is it for me. digital asset management, creating a file structure to easily organize, backup, archive, and free up space.
Thank you very much, Richard, for the presentation today. I hope you guys got a lot out of it as much as I did. I enjoyed it very thoroughly. So I want to move right into the question and answer time. So guys, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat area here, and we'll just go ahead and start working our way down. So first question comes in from, I hope I don't pronounce your name wrong, Jasik. I would like to know how to transfer edited RAW files from Lightroom into external storage. Do you have any tips on that, Richard?
So we want to go from Lightroom, if I heard you correctly, to an external storage device?
He said, yeah, he says, I would like to know how to transfer edited RAW files from Lightroom into external storage. I'm not sure what kind of external storage you wanted to specify by that. Jasik, if you want to respond inside of the question area, I will go ahead and relay that information to Richard.
Yeah, for me, from what that sounded like, the simple answer is when you have your edited RAW, to simply export them as JPEG to just an external hard drive. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm missing something else with that question.
I will see if he goes in a little bit more specifics on there. He might have meant maybe a completely different external device, but we'll go ahead and continue working on there. And if you want to respond back to that question, I'll be more than glad to ask it again, Jasik. All right, so let me continue to kind of just narrow through here, guys, for you. And again, if you do have any other questions, we have plenty of time here, so go ahead and just type them inside of the question box right here.
I'm going to try and open up the question box as well.
Sure. Let me see if I can.
I think Jasik, what he might be asking is, once you've edited the raw files in Lightroom, moving the raw files to external storage and still having the ability to use in Lightroom. Two things come to mind. You can simply just drag and drop your raw, off your desktop to the external storage. Lightroom, once you start it up again, it will ask you where the files went, and you'll be able to hit the question mark that pops up on the files and just tell it where you put it, and everything will be back up and running. Another way to do that I like, there's an option in Lightroom's preferences. I think it's in the preferences. I don't think it's the catalog settings. Can't think of it off the top of my head. But it'll ask you if you want XMP files written as you do the editing. A Lightroom catalog is basically a catalog of XMP data. So you don't see those XMP files in your folders when you do the editing. But there's an option to turn that on, so it does create XMP files. And if you don't have the option on, normally what we do when we're done editing the wedding, I select all the images and hit Command S in Lightroom, and that saves the XMPs for every file you have selected into that folder with the RAW. And then we can move that RAW with the XMPs, and we'll be able to see those edits when we open up those RAW in Photoshop, or if we decide to import those files into a different Lightroom catalog, all the XMP data is there, so all your changes and all your editing is going to be there. It's also a nice way to have a backup. In case a Lightroom catalog ever corrupts, you'll have the XMP data there. And XMP data is minute space. I mean, it's like 700 KB last I checked. It might even be smaller than that, depending on how much data is in there. I mean, literally less than one megabyte. So, in case anything happens to your Lightroom catalog, you have all the XMPs there, and you can load all that data right back into Lightroom.
Awesome, and then I will continue to kind of go down here, and if you see the questions on here, Richard, feel free to just repeat the question and the asker's name, and we'll go from there.
Let's see. C.D. Kennedy said, have you heard that bank vaults are not good for storage? Can the doors magnets erase data from drives stored in safe deposit boxes? Yeah, I'd be worried if there are any magnets around, if the doors are operated that way. Other thing that would worry me on that is that the bank vaults and the safe deposit boxes are all metal. If any static gets transferred throughout the vault, throughout the metal boxes, that static's going to transfer to your drives. And that's why we use those HUD cases. They're an anti-static case, plastic. It's got some padding on the inside for the drive as well. So it's safe. If you're going to put it into a bank vault, just to get rid of some of the static, put it in that plastic casing. And we ordered like a ridiculous amount of hard drive anti-static sleeves. They were on sale somewhere. We had to order like a minimum of 50 or something. And it's just another good thing. It's like when you buy a new hard drive, what's those bags that they come in are anti-static. That's the only thing I would be really worried about. Obviously, yes, a magnet, not good for hard drives, but the static as well.
Awesome. So I'm going to go down Rhonda's question here. What are the advantages of PhotoMechanic versus Lightroom for wedding workflow?
Great question. PhotoMechanic is a speed demon. The main difference between the two is that Lightroom, you have to import your RAW into Lightroom. Lightroom then has to process the RAW and to show you what the image looks like, or what Lightroom says the image should look like. And all of that takes time. When you come back from a wedding and you import everything into Lightroom so you can begin your culling, you have to wait sometimes, depending on how fast or slow your computer is, you have to wait for that image to render, even if it's like, a second or a half a second, which doesn't seem like a lot of time, but you're going through 3,000 images, that's a lot of time. Some people like to render one-to-one, render the previews, so they come up really quick when you go through and do your culling, but you have to wait for all that rendering to happen, which if you come back from a wedding, load everything up, let it render overnight, you're ready to go in the morning. Now, PhotoMechanic skips all of that. PhotoMechanic really acts kind of like Bridge. It's just a file viewer. But what PhotoMechanic does, it doesn't even have to render the RAW. What it does is it reads the high-res JPEG that's embedded into the RAW. It's actually what you see on the back of your camera. That's the file it shows. So when you pull up an image of PhotoMechanic, all it's doing is showing you that JPEG image that's embedded in the RAW. I mean, we even have an older laptop here with PhotoMechanic on it, and I can pull up an entire folder of RAW images. It shows them to me instantly. I can hold my finger down on an arrow key, and it zooms through all the images, loading every single one of them as they fly by. So that's where it becomes a speed demon. It's also a big part of our workflow because not only can we call a wedding really fast, what we do is we mark all the ones that we're going to keep. We like to use the color blue. It's the color of my business. We use the blue color to mark our keeps. When we get to the end of the wedding, we hide the ones that we marked blue. And so all we have in front of us is all of the rejects. We select all the rejects, move them to our rejects folder, and then all we do is take the RAW folder, which has now just our keep files in there. We load the RAW folder only into Lightroom. So now we're only loading 800 to 1,000. I usually give about 800 images for a wedding. We're only loading 800 images in the Lightroom instead of the 3,000, 3,500 that 2 or 3 photographers took into Lightroom. So that cuts down our Lightroom import and Lightroom rendering time as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely sounds like it would be very beneficial to workflow. So that definitely sounds like an application people should check out if they're not using it.
Yep, it's CameraBits makes it. It's only $150, and everyone I've talked to that I've recommended using PhotoMechanic, everyone swears by it.
Yeah, I've heard other wedding photographers and photographers just doing high volume mention it before as well. So let me go here and just kind of sort through some of the other questions. And we'll take a couple more questions. If you see any you want to go ahead and answer.
This is a quick one. Emma asked, what's the maximum size you recommend for a Lightroom catalog? I heard at one point Lightroom catalogs don't like to go above 15,000 images, but it depends on your computer, your processing. Again, we are a one Lightroom catalog per event. It keeps our catalog small. It keeps the catalog information with each event, and especially for archiving purposes, that all carries, everything goes right along with the client. We're not trying to take just one edit session out of a huge catalog out to archive. Every client has their own archive. And we back up and optimize our Lightroom catalogs every time we close. That's part of that second internal drive we have that we use kind of as a scratch disk. We don't even really pay attention to the Lightroom backups, but they do happen. But we have, our catalogs duplicated on 2 Drobos and in the cloud, and we save the XMPs. So we're not really relying on those Lightroom backups. Something else that just popped into my head. What was that question? Something good I wanted to say too. You always forget those.
we might have cleared it out inside of here. We just have the pending ones right now.
Let's see. I work on a PC. Will your system work for me? Oh, Christopher, how are you? Yeah, everything I mentioned is PC based too. I don't think there's anything that wouldn't work on a PC.
Awesome. I think he's got the second. It looks like he's got questions about the Drobo system. So I know if he wants to ask you that privately, that might take.
Yeah, just go to drobo.com. The system cost and breakdown and everything's on there. Drobo will sell you the drives along with the Drobo all in one place. They do sell you the caviar greens. I just like the caviar blacks better. And newegg.com always has the best price on those drives, and you do get them really quick with shipping.
They are a very great company to work with.
Yeah.
I've used them in the past, guys. Definitely would recommend them. So it looks like we've answered all the questions in here today, Richard, so thank you so much for your time and creating an awesome presentation, and thank you to all the attendees who joined us today. So again, we will have the video online on YouTube, which our YouTube channel is youtube.com/PhotoBiz, so be sure to check it out, and it'll be online in the next 48 hours, and feel free to subscribe to our channel whenever you're there. So thanks again, guys. I think there's one more question here. It just came in from Samantha. She said, Richard, I've been using caviar green drives. Can I add black drives without disturbing anything?
Oh yeah, especially if you're talking about the Drobo. Drobo will use any combination of drives, no matter what brand, what size. Doesn't matter. As long as he can fit them in the Drobo, it'll take it.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that answers all of the questions we had today. And again, thanks, Richard, for taking the time, to create the presentation and present to everybody. So, guys, if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to contact Richard or visit ineedre.com. I saw some people who did have some questions that just got directed to me, more about systems and workflow, and you can find all the information you need on that website, which again is ineedre.com. So thanks again for joining us. We're going to go ahead and shut down today's webinar. If you have any additional questions for either one of us, feel free to contact Richard with his contact information he supplied, or you can email me at danny@photobiz.com. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.